This NFL offseason has had a lot of moving and shaking, and there have been some teams that have really left me scratching my head wondering, what the hell are they doing? There are a multitude of teams that have just kind of left me pondering, what are their plans to win the Super Bowl? I mean, that is every single team's end goal. It's not to make the playoffs, it's not to be a 500 team, but it's to win the Super Bowl. And there's a lot of different teams I'm out here wondering, how are these moves through trades and acquisitions and free agencies going to help move your team forward to that goal? We're going to be talking about the three biggest losers in this year's NFL offseason. And there have been plenty of teams that have been classified as losers this offseason. So I won't be able to have time to cover all of them. But if I'm thinking about the teams that have lost huge pieces of our organization or just really don't have a direction at this time period, there are three teams that really stick out. And there might be a few teams on this list that kind of surprise you. I know this is not content that I usually create, but there have just been so many losers this offseason in the NFL that I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about them. The first team I have to talk about is the New England Patriots. And a lot of people have the New England Patriots on the list of, biggest losers this offseason, obviously because they lost Tom Brady. Anytime you lose a Hall of Fame, a first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback at that, who's got, 6 Super Bowls, the best quarterback in the history of the NFL, anytime you lose a piece like that, you are automatically going to be one of the biggest losers of the offseason. And then you look at all the pieces they lost on defense. They lost Jamie Collins. They lost Danny Shelton. They traded away Daron Harmon. They lost Landon Roberts. They lost Kyle Van Noy. And then they lost Ted Karras on the offensive side of the ball. You look at all those pieces and you start to wonder, wow, the New England Patriots have lost a lot this offseason. And when you start to glance at the pieces they added this offseason, it's not a lot. I mean, Brian Hoyer and a lot of different guys that are rotational players and special teamers, on paper, it looks like a big F- this offseason for the New England Patriots. There's no doubt about it. Losing those pieces definitely hurts the Patriots. But if there's one thing I've learned about Bill Belichick that he does better than anybody else in the entire NFL, is he has the ability to find these rotational guys and these special teams only guys and really go ahead and fit them into certain packages where they're able to thrive and make a name for themselves. And a perfect example of this is Kyle Van Noy. Before joining the New England Patriots via trade, he was just a rotational guy for the Detroit Lions. Your typical 7th round draft pick. Didn't get a lot of snaps, really didn't have high expectations for him. But when he joined the Patriots, he slowly got integrated in via Bill Belichick. He slowly got placed in packages here and there, dribs and drabs. And he performed and showed that he was consistent. And he did exactly what, the defense wanted and what he was supposed to do in that Bill Belichick system. And it's grown to where he is today, where he was a highly sought after free agent this offseason. Bill Belichick really has an ability to find these guys who really haven't made a name for themselves yet in their NFL career and give them the platform to excel by going ahead and making sure he showcases their abilities. I mean, also look at Rob Ninkovich, the same exact situation. A guy that was with the Miami Dolphins, really didn't do much in his career, and, goes ahead and finds his way on the New England Patriots and makes a career for himself. So, the Patriots losing these pieces on defense hurts, don't get me wrong. But in the same token, if there's one coach and general manager who can go ahead and find a way to replace guys and allow certain players to step up in their career and development, it's Bill Belichick. Losing these defensive pieces was big, don't get me wrong, but it pales in comparison of the loss of Tom Brady. The New England Patriots really don't have a backup quarterback option. I mean, Jarrett Stidham, that's your option? Hard to say you feel really confident as a Patriot fan entering the season with Jarrett Stidham as your starting quarterback. And Tom Brady, obviously in his advanced age, is not what he used to be. I mean, there's no real debating that. But he's still a great quarterback, and that is a huge loss for the Patriots. And a team that left me questioning what their mindset is the Houston Texans. That trade they made, giving up DeAndre Hopkins for essentially David Johnson, a 2nd round pick, and both teams went ahead and exchanged 4th round picks. was disgusting in every single sense of the word. DeAndre Hopkins is an elite level wide receiver. Top 5 in the NFL, no debate about it. And the Texans get back in return essentially David Johnson and a second round pick. And if you want to talk about the value of David Johnson when he was traded, it was at an all-time low. Again, he was being crowded out of the backfield. Kenyon Drake and Chase Edmonds were going to be the guys. David Johnson didn't have any room to play anymore. And you gave up so much for a guy who's only had one season with more than 1,000 yards rushing. The Houston Texans haven't had an elite running back since Arian Foster. And I understand they're looking for an elite caliber running back. But they completely mismanaged their assets. And this trade was gross neglect. I don't understand how they could give up a top 5 receiver in the NFL for a guy who has been crowded out of the backfield and his trade value is at an all-time low. And for that reason, I mean, the Houston Texans have had a hideous offseason. The next team I'm going to talk about might surprise some, but this offseason has kind of left me wondering what their plans are and, what the bigger picture is for them. It's the Carolina Panthers. This has been a nightmare scenario for all Carolina Panther fans. I mean, the offseason started off with losing a Hall of Fame caliber inside linebacker in Luke Kuechly. It was unexpected and a huge loss. And then free agency starts. You lose James Bradbury, your number 1 corner, a guy who is really the corner, the lockdown corner for the Carolina Panthers. You lose essentially your entire defensive line. Mario Addison, Vernon Butler, Gerald McCoy, Bruce Irvin, and another big name guy, Dontari Poe. All 5 of those pieces on the defensive line, gone. You release Eric Reed, given he didn't have a great year last season, but, 2 years ago, had an excellent season. But still, he's a starting safety. You traded away Trey Turner, you lose Greg Van Roten to free agency, and you bring back in return Russell Okung, 32-year-old Russell Okung? That's going to fix your porous offensive line issues? I'm just kind of left scratching my head. What's the plan here on the offensive line? And to cap it all off, you lose Greg Olsen. He's a fan favorite. Given injuries have kind of derailed his career, he's definitely at an advanced age. Not sure how much he's got left in the tank. Not a huge loss in Greg Olsen, but he's a fan favorite. So this offseason started off horribly for all Carolina Panther fans. And as the Panthers were losing all these players to trades, free agency, or they're just being released, their big 2-ticket moves this offseason were to bring in Teddy Bridgewater and Robbie Anderson. And adding Robbie Anderson was definitely a plus for the Panthers this offseason. They had no real option at wide receiver besides DJ Moore last year. So adding a little bit more depth and a high caliber wide receiver is definitely a plus. It will help open up a little bit more in the passing game. So definitely a good move by adding Robbie Anderson. Panther fans, we've got to go ahead and level here. The addition of Teddy Bridgewater is not going to be something that's going to be favorable to this organization. We talk about Teddy Bridgewater as a quarterback. He's never thrown for more than 14 touchdown passes in a single season. I just want you to think about that. Every single year before this upcoming season is 16 games every single regular season. Teddy Bridgewater doesn't even average a passing touchdown a game. 14 passing touchdowns even as a starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. He never has eclipsed 14 passing touchdowns in a season. Is that the guy that's going to lead you to a Super Bowl? Absolutely not. People love when backup quarterbacks are able to come into situations and not miss a beat, right? They love that Teddy Bridgewater was able to step into the shoes of Drew Brees and win all 5 football games he played in. They love that. They love that he threw for 9 touchdowns and only threw 2 interceptions. But let's take a look at this, guys. The situation with the New Orleans Saints and the Carolina Panthers are very different. The Saints have, a great running back in Alvin Kamara. The Panthers have an excellent running back in Christian McCaffrey. The Saints have an elite level wide receiver core. The Panthers do not. The Saints also had tight end options. The Panthers, not so much. The Saints' offensive line is elite. The Panthers, not so much. The Saints' defense is elite. The Panthers' defense, with all the losses they had this offseason, they've lost a multitude of pieces. Their entire defensive line. Luke Kuechly, safeties, corners, important pieces on the defense, is extremely decimated from last year's team. he's not going to be stepping into the same situation that Teddy Bridgewater stepped into last season. So don't expect Teddy Bridgewater to put up numbers that were comparable to what he performed for the New Orleans Saints. It's just not realistic. And shortly after signing Teddy Bridgewater, you release Cam Newton. And this is the issue I have with that. They said they tried their options. They tried to make a trade. They tried the Chicago Bears, amongst other teams, to go ahead and trade Cam Newton to. This is my thing. If you could have gotten anything for Cam Newton, hell, even a 7th round pick, you have to be malleable. You have to make those trades. I guess other teams around the NFL went ahead and called your bluff, where you released them and got nothing in return for Cam Newton. I don't think Cam Newton's an elite level quarterback, but I can tell you one thing, he sure as hell is better than Teddy Bridgewater. I think Teddy Bridgewater to Cam Newton is a significant downgrade. I think all the defensive pieces lost, as comparison to bringing on a guy like Robbie Anderson, is a significant downgrade. And looking at the moves they've made this offseason, it kind of leaves me questioning, what's the plan in the future for the Carolina Panthers going forward? What's the plan for this organization? They're trying not to rebuild, obviously. When you add guys like Teddy Bridgewater and Robbie Anderson, you're not trying to go full rebuild at the moment. At least that's not how it looks. But I'm not sure anything but a full rebuild is the right decision for the Panthers. I mean, you can't continue to run and abuse Christian McCaffrey the way you did last year. I mean, he had over, close to 300 rushes altogether, 287 rushes last year, and over 100 receptions. You continue to use and abuse that young man, his longevity in the league and his success is going to be obviously hindered long term. I've seen people questioning, should the Panthers trade Christian McCaffrey? And I'm not 100% opposed to it. When you look at this situation, you have to think, when are the Panthers going to be a Super Bowl competitor? Because next season, they sure as hell won't be a Super Bowl competitor. And with Teddy Bridgewater at the helm and all the losses on defense, when does it look like they will be a Super Bowl competitor? If it's not in the near future, why keep a guy like Christian McCaffrey if you plan to use him the same way you did last year? There's only so much tread on the tire for a running back. And if you plan on rushing him close to 300 times a season and him receiving the ball over 100 times a year, it just doesn't bode well for his future and career. He's obviously going to put up monster numbers in the short term, but long term, how long is that sustainable for? I don't know. It's just something interesting to think about. And again, with the year he had last year, you have to imagine his trade value and what you would get back in return for him would be at an all-time high. Not saying the Panthers should trade Christian McCaffrey, but it's an interesting thought process to think about. And that kind of wraps it up, guys. I know there's more teams I'm sure I could have added on this list, but in the same token, these are the 3 teams I think have had the worst offseason so far. I know this is not the usual content I release. It's a little bit more off the cuff. But if you've enjoyed it, let me know in the comments section below and by subscribing. Thanks so much, guys, for watching.